Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to No Timeouts, a football show coming at you from the Score studio. That is Dan Wilkins. That is Zak McDonald. That is Tyler MacKillop. My name is Jonah Birenbaum. Gentlemen, we made it. NFL football is finally officially back. We are obviously super stoked about that, but we're also super thrilled to have you guys back following us here at No Timeouts. We're super hyped for season 2 of the show. Thank you for sticking with us through our inaugural campaign. I am confident season 2 is going to be even better. I mean, we got a desk, so that's a pretty promising start. Anyways.
Jonah, do you know that today is really the best day in the calendar because it's the most football we possibly could have looking forward. Like every single, it starts today and then it's the most college football, CFL, if you like that. It is really the best day on the calendar.
I know Zach does. He was at the Labor Day Classic in Hamilton on
Big
Monday.
time.
There you go.
I know he loves ball and he's excited to talk about it.
Today is a big day for ball appreciators. That goes without saying because the preseason is over. The rosters have been finalized. The depth charts have been set. The fantasy drafts are all in the rearview mirror. It's time to play meaningful football. And Wilk, a couple days ago, I know on the Score app, you put up your Week 1 power rankings. And to kick off today's show, I want you to dive into those. Give us your top 10 teams in the NFL.
Okay, I'll see how fast I can get through these. Number 1, the Eagles. I think that's a pretty obvious top team. They beat the brakes off the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. This is still the best roster in football to me. I know they lost a couple pieces on the defensive side in the offseason, but I think another year of their young stars in that defense could make them even better this year. I think they're probably going to be back in the Super Bowl this year, but wait for Super Bowl predictions later to find out. Number 2, the Chiefs, because who else was that going to be? They've been in the Super Bowl, the last 5 of the last 6 years or something, winning 3. I mean, it's been a little ugly at times over the last 2 years on offense, but I'm pretty confident that this is the year that they recapture some of that old magic in the downfield passing game. And if that happens, they could easily be back there again in February. Number 3, the Ravens. You guys know how much I love this team. They're coming off a truly historic season on the offensive side of the ball. That is not hyperbole. It's one of the best offenses we've ever seen. I expect them to be almost as good this year. I don't think we can say every bit as good because it was crazy, but I expect them to be almost as good on that side of the ball this year. And funnily enough, on defense, they had the best defense in the league for the second half of last season. They had Jair Alexander, they had Mike Green, they had Malachi Starks. I think they could be even better this year. So they're the clear top threat to the Eagles and Chiefs at the top of this list to me. Number 4 is the Bills. I do still have some questions about the receiving core. As much as I like some of the young defensive talent that they added in the draft, there's no guarantee that that produces immediate results. But having said that, I don't think you could reasonably have the Bills any lower than this just because Josh Allen working behind one of the best offensive lines in football, that's an automatic Super Bowl ceiling for me. Number 5, the Packers. I know some people will probably see this as a bit of an overreaction to the Micah Parsons trade. That might include Tyler. Myself, I kind of see this as, I don't know if I'm reacting enough to the Parsons trade. Like, you look at what the Cowboys were the last 4 seasons on defense. When Micah Parsons was on the field over that span, they were the number 1 defense in the NFL by EPA per play. When he was off the field, they were dead last. That's how good this guy is. And the Packers, who finished last season ranked, tied for 4th in EPA per play, now adding that type of player to the mix, the possibilities there are just incredible. And when you factor in the reality or the likelihood that I saw that they were going to take a big step forward on offense in Jordan Love's 3rd year as a starter, I just think that they have everything they need to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender right now. Number 6 is the Lions. Obviously, the big question here is, and we've talked about it a bunch over the past few weeks, do they have the ability to kind of stave off any sort of significant setbacks from losing both of their star coordinators in the same offseason? Obviously, the Eagles had some trouble with that a few years ago when it happened to them coming off their Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs. I would just bet on Dan Campbell navigating those changes better than Nick Sirianni did at the time. I think they have all the talent they need to win right now. Number 7, the Vikings. I can't remember, T, if you and me are a little opposed on this take or not. Are you in on the Vikings?
I mean, roster-wise, everything outside of JJ, the run game will be better.
Everything outside of their starting quarterback.
In looking around, I feel like I'm kind of the high guy on the Vikings right now. And I understand the instinct for people to kind of dial back expectations because they're, handing things over to a de facto rookie quarterback who missed all of last year with a knee injury. But, man, I would just have a hard time believing that with this coaching staff and the roster that they have around the quarterback after a really good offseason, I just can't believe that they're in for some sort of monumental collapse going from Sam Darnold to another really talented first-round quarterback. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I think, if anything, everyone's kind of sleeping on this team right now.
Yeah, you save like for them, they're like, well, the obvious decision is let's save money with the rookie quarterback that could be the same as the guy we just had, and then plug all the holes we think we have problems with elsewhere. And that's kind of what they did. The offensive line, they get another running back to run with Jones. They are dead set on making the run game better. I think they did that. Yeah. Still, Brian Flores calling the plays on defense. You could argue this is one of those teams that has a ceiling of being third, fourth on this list, potentially.
If anything, I think that people are just kind of overthinking this one and focusing too much on the quarterback position. I know that's a little weird to say in today's game, but I think that's what's going on here.
Well, you don't look at their record last year and think that it was all Sam Darnold that got them to.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
At number 8 is the Rams, and this is kind of the end of the true Super Bowl contenders tier for me. Obviously, there's big question marks around Matthew Stafford and the health of his back. He dealt with a back injury all through the preseason. We don't know if that's going to be a thing throughout the regular season. But he's on track for week 1, so all I can do is assume that he's going to be fine. And if he is, man, this team can play with anyone. Yeah. I love the addition of Devontae Adams. I think that that's probably the best move of the entire offseason. He's going to score a ton of touchdowns opposite Puka Nacua. I hope you got him in your draft last night, Jonah.
Sadly, I didn't. He was snaked from me. I'm devastated about it.
Tough. But I think that the defense is a lot better than people think, too. So if Stafford's healthy, this team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender to me. 9, the Commanders, maybe a little lower than people think. They're getting a lot of love around the league after their NFC title trip in year 1 of the rebuild last year. So I definitely get the excitement. For me, I don't know. I still have some questions about the defense. I don't know that last year's run deep into the playoffs really means that they are automatically just going to be better next year because they did make some additions to the roster. I don't know that it necessarily works like that. And we talked about it on a previous show. The schedule does get a lot harder than it was last year when they ran off 12 wins. So honestly, I did pick them to miss the playoffs. I'm not sure I'm going to be right about that, but I think that they're probably comfortably outside the top 8 for me. And then rounding out the top 10 is the Bucs. I just think that they don't get nearly enough love. They've got 4 straight division titles, 2 of which coming after Tom Brady's retirement. So just the ability to kind of steady things after that huge loss. You could say it's because they're in the NFC South, and there's probably some merit to that. But I think that this has quietly become one of the most well-run organizations in the entire league. I think the offense will be almost as good as it was last year with Liam Cohen. I think that they've got the foundation to kind of keep things going there. And if they can figure out the pass defense, obviously Todd Bowles has a defensive background. If they can get those things sorted out, I think they'll be right in the mix at the end of the year.
So the only thing that I wanted to, because we actually, for anyone that watched our preseason stuff, we had to cut the Packers as pretenders because I'm like, well, this changes everything for the fact that you get Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons.
Yeah, following the trade. It happened the same day. My biggest thing is I'm not completely defensively this is the great thing about the show and listening to Dan. He can change my opinion. I will completely admit that.
Yeah.
But offensively, I do wonder if Golden is the type of player that can get to the level of, when you look at your rankings here, like the teams behind them is like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Jay Jettas, a Puka Nacua, Terry McLaurin. Because I think teams figured out that if you play a lot of man coverage, they don't have the guys that are going to separate and make plays. Because Love had a 48% completion percentage last year against man, which was like 33rd amongst qualified quarterbacks. So I wonder if Golden can be that guy. In college, the numbers didn't tell you he was like this crazy good elite separator against man. Mm-hmm. So I am worried about whether or not Love has the pieces to be able to be one of those top 10 offenses, which I think you need to pair to be, a top 5 team in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I do think that Golden can be that guy. Whether he qualifies as like the true number 1 receiver label, I don't know. We'll figure that out. But I just love his fit in this offense as a guy coming out who great speed, can stretch the field. That's something they really needed.
Yep.
I saw him as a really good route runner. Whether the separation scores reflected that, I don't know off the top of my head. But to me, he's a guy who was a pretty advanced route runner for a guy coming into the league. And specifically, like his release package coming off the line was just awesome. I think that he's going to be a really nice fit in that offense, elevating a group that already included guys like Tucker Kraft, Josh Jacobs, Jaden Reed. Obviously, he's dealing with a foot injury, so we'll see what happens there. But I think that this group could be really good.
I think people are going to be surprised, too, at his ability to take in contested catches as well. Like there was
He's not huge, right?
He's not huge. So I think when you look at his physical profile like that, you don't think about him as a contested catch guy.
Yeah.
There was one play in the season, like right on the sidelines, where basically he like undercutted the defender and caught the ball behind his back. And he is kind of, I think that's the thing that they most liked about him. That's why they drafted him, was his ability when the ball is in the air to pinpoint where the ball is, to get under it and to get into the right spot, which obviously if you have Jordan Love, like we've seen the throws that he makes down the field. So I think him being that down the field threat, the separation's right. And also some of the numbers I think for the completion percentage numbers are affected. Like they were one of the worst drop teams of any team in the NFL last year.
100%.
They could not catch anything.
Yeah.
And the Packers kind of philosophy in general is like, we're going to bet on our guys, and like hopefully Romeo Doubs like learns to catch a little bit better. Hopefully some of those guys fill in. I'm curious, did you have a power rankings with the Packers in it before Micah Parsons got there?
Good
Yeah,
question.
I think they were 7, 8. So
Okay.
I've been pretty high on them already.
Yeah.
Like I thought they were kind of like knocking on the door.
Yeah.
And now this just puts it over the top for me. Like if anyone, like this is very reminiscent of the Khalil Mack trade in 2018, was it?
Yeah.
Where the Bears got him a week before the season. We don't need to talk about where they got him from. But
Quarterback.
This is very reminiscent of something that turned out terrible.
yeah, the
Player was
difference,
good.
well, for me, not for the Bears.
Yeah.
But the difference here is that Parsons, I would say, is a better player than Khalil Mack. Obviously, Khalil Mack is great, but he's another level of a player. But the Packers are also a far better team than the Bears were at the time.
100%.
They have a far better quarterback, and I think that this has the potential to put them over the top.
As
really.
improved as the Packers are, though, it really feels like the NFC is the Eagles to lose. Because if you look at your top 4, you got the Eagles and then 3 teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think we could look at it any other way given the way the Eagles finished last season. Like, I know we are constantly looking for new teams. Maybe we lean toward picking away from the defending champs just to mix it up. You know, it's hard to repeat.
Yeah.
But just on paper, like the Eagles team is still ridiculous, and they are the champs until proven otherwise.
So I was a little surprised to see any NFC South team on this list crack the top 10. Were you agonizing about maybe the Bengals at 10? Who was like the next
Bengals.
team
No.
left off?
Honestly, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's like a group of teams like Broncos,
Yeah.
Texans. I'm really high on the Texans this year. I think that if the offense goes the way that I think it might go, bringing in Nick Caley as the coordinator, replacing Bobby Slowick, I think that pairing that with the defense could make them like a sneaky contender in the AFC, like at least like a top 4 team in that conference.
You said a big if there, which we'll talk about later, but
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, but I'm pretty high on what they could do on that side of the ball this year. I know the run game is a bit of a question mark, but I just love that defense, and I love Stroud.
I think this is a really, not to go on this too long, but I think this is a really feels like a top-heavy year. I feel like the middle of the league is a little bit down right now.
Yeah.
And I want one clarification on one thing. Last week you said the Commanders, not a playoff team. This week you have them
here's
firmly in the top 10.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, that's like, I think predictions are a little bit different than where I would like power rank where they are
fair.
right now. So I would say, like, yeah, going into the season, you would look at the Commanders as a top 10 team, but my prediction would be by the end of the year, we don't necessarily see that play out in a playoff appearance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there were extenuating circumstances. I challenge you guys to make takes that were progressively getting hotter. So yeah, you had to step it up. So I appreciate that. All right, we got some other news and notes to discuss critically. As I alluded to earlier, I think I did, depth charts for all 32 teams have now been finalized. And T, I know that there were some assignments around the league that maybe piqued your interest, had you scratching your head. What were some of the more interesting or controversial depth chart assignments?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about rookies, and you can take this however you'd like. It feels like if a rookie makes the first team or is on the first team in the depth chart, it's a great sign. If they're listed as the RB3 or RB4 like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was, I don't really care. I don't think it means anything. If it's for rookies getting to be in the number 1 spot, I think it's a great sign. If not, I wouldn't worry about it if you're a fantasy manager, let's say. Eli Kyle-Manor, I think being the wide receiver 3 ahead of Van Jefferson for Tennessee is, I think, a great thing for them if they have a rookie developing as opposed to a veteran that I don't think has much of any upside. They've been talking very highly about Io Manor as a route runner. I think he fits excellently across from Calvin Ridley, being like a downfield option in contested catch situations, potentially a touchdown scorer for them as well. You look at Jackson Darts, the QB2 in New York. I think that's a good sign that if you're looking for the Giants to move on from Russell Wilson, it's going to likely be Jackson Dart. What were a few of the other ones that I thought were interesting? Good sign for Matthew Golden being the number one immediately for Green Bay. I don't think that's much of a question mark, but yeah, I think depth charts are really a lot of coach speak that might not mean too much.
Yeah, Dobbins is the number one over RJ Harvey in Denver.
Denver.
That one's interesting.
Then again, RJ Harvey was like the RB4, I think, at one point, so that's a good sign he's the RB2 on the depth chart.
I feel like part of me does buy that one because I could see Peyton like bringing Harvey along slowly, and obviously Dobbins is the better player in pass protection, so he could rely on him pretty heavily and maybe at the goal line as well. So maybe Harvey or maybe Dobbins is the guy you kind of want in fantasy to start the season, but
T-Mac's a big
as
Dobbins
it goes
guy.
on,
He loves J.K. Dobbins.
The other one was Caleb Johnson. He's listed the RB3 behind Kenny Gainwell. I know they haven't been happy, and grades-wise in pass pro have not been good in the preseason for him, so I do think Jalen Warren's probably their number one, especially with the contract extension.
Yeah.
But
well, and Tomlin always plays veteran players longer than people want him to, right? So I would kind of caution against any like Caleb Johnson. I love the fit there in Pittsburgh, and I love him in an outside zone scheme with Arthur Smith, but man, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be on the field much this year because I think they're really going to be relying on Jalen Warren.
Okay,
and there's Travis Hunter. He was a wide receiver on the first team, backup cornerback. We obviously kind of knew that, but I think that will be one of the big stories coming out of the first week of the season to see where and what he plays for most of the game.
Very excited for
Definitely.
that.
I was going to say, speaking of guys who stick around too long, we got to talk about Bill Belichick. Because the six-time Super Bowl champion got absolutely humiliated in his college football debut. His UNC Tar Heels got spanked 48-14 by TCU. Not once in Belichick's 511-game coaching career in the NFL did one of his teams allow that many points. Zach, I know you had thoughts about Belichick's college debut.
Well, first of all, one thing is you say six-time Super Bowl champion. He's actually won more Super Bowls than that. So one thing we need to put to bed immediately is any kind of Bill Belichick's a Tom Brady merchant discussion. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Go watch the New York Giants game plan against in the Super Bowl that they went out and absolutely dominated, and it was one of the greatest coaching performances of all time. And Bill Parcells is actually a Bill Belichick merchant if you look at the history of how things go. I have two thoughts of mine. It's like, one, this is going to be really bad this year. They got the meme machine out in full force. Randy Moss is with Jordan Hudson, and somehow Michael Jordan is there at UNC, and he's the second most important Jordan in the building, which is absolutely insane. You got all these people around, all these big stars. I think T-Mac was saying LT was there and stuff like that. And
Aaron Boone was there. I saw that one too.
I think his son is employed by the team.
Yeah.
Anyways, all that to say, it's like if North Carolina keeps losing these games, the meme machine is just going to be even more and more prevalent every single game. On the other hand, 70 new players on the team. He's introducing a new system. He's got new everything everywhere. So you can't really expect any coach to be this good right away to turn over. North Carolina is not some historic powerhouse program, right? He's building this from scratch. So that doesn't make me too worried. What makes me worried is the thing that I referenced in the first half. This is not Bill Belichick football. He doesn't like to have all this going around. He's doing book tours. He's got everything involved. So that's making me think he's lost his fastball a bit.
Is he the coach next year?
Yeah, well, if anyone thought this was like an NFL stepping stone job, that's just couldn't be any farther.
That's
from
what
the
I
truth.
mean, but I think maybe he thought that, right?
I think he wanted
so,
it.
Potentially,
and if he thought that and he finds out after that that's not going to happen, is he really just going to keep doing this for the next few years?
Well, he's got his sons now. I mean, I think at this, I think if you thought that this was going to be successful, you don't really know where college, expecting in this landscape of college football for a 70-year-old that's been in NFL for however many years coming straight to college and finding success when he needs to, a lot of coaches in college can find success jumping to a new team by bringing the players they already coached with them. That hasn't existed for Bill Belichick. It is in I don't even know how many years. So I think that maybe year two will be better. He has some more time to scout and evaluate, which has always been one of his better traits. but 70 new players, guys he's not familiar with. It's not really his team at this point. And
Gio
giving up
Lopez
45
at
points,
QB.
giving up 45 points is actually the norm for North Carolina football. So he's kind of just playing into who they are.
So he didn't bring shame upon the football powerhouse that is the
Yeah,
UNC
no,
Tar
definitely
Heels.
not.
The 6 and 7 Tar Heels from last year who lost in the Fenway Bowl, as everyone remembers.
Everyone's just mad because Bill Belichick beat their teams all up and down the field every single year for 20 years. So now they want to hate on him. Let's have some respect for a legend.
And maybe he'll win this week.
Maybe. But we got to stick around in the college football world for at least one more second because, like 20 minutes into the NCAA season, the stock of the presumptive number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft has already plummeted. Arch Manning, the nephew of Peyton and Eli, and the redshirt sophomore quarterback at Texas, he stumbled through a pretty uninspiring debut as the full-time starting quarterback for the Longhorns. He went 17 for 30 for 170 yards, threw a pick and an interception in a loss against a very tough Ohio State team. And already, it seems like his draft stock has plummeted. Wilk, let me ask you, was it premature to anoint Arch Manning as the potential number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL Draft?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, he's still a talented kid, and I'm not going to doubt that he could get there eventually, but I think it was pretty ridiculous that, every mock draft you look at had him as the number 1 pick over some equally talented quarterbacks and ones who are far more established. I think it's pretty clear that that was more about the, unstoppable or endless excitement that comes with his last name than it was any sort of like concrete evidence of the player that he could be at the next level. And while we're talking about this year's draft, I'm actually not sure that him being a part of that class was ever really a consideration. I just have a hard time believing that this family of like football royalty and Hall of Fame quarterbacks who played in an era where college experience was so important, and I imagine they still to this day see it as extremely important for the development of a young quarterback. I didn't think it was possible that they were just going to let Arch jump to the NFL after 1 season as the full-time starter. I think that there was probably always going to be a plan in place that said, okay, you're going to get all the experience you can in college. You're going to be as prepared as you possibly could be. And to me, that's 2 full years as a starter and then entering the 2027 NFL Draft. And could he be the number 1 pick at that point? I don't know, maybe. I mean, I'm definitely not going to rule it out. I don't think that 1 game against the defending champs and a Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator really like makes or breaks your college career. But I will say, like, looking ahead to that 2027 draft, and you'd know this even better than me, that group is stacked. There's also DJ Lagway, there's Dylan Stewart, there's Jeremiah Smith. There's certainly no guarantee that he's going to be the number 1 pick then either, as much as everyone wants to make it a thing. So I kind of say we should all just get rid of these unrealistic expectations and just let it play out and let him play.
I think it's crazy that we have to pull out some grand take on Arch Manning after 1 week of college football against the best team in the world. It's like, my opinion of watching Arch Manning, I went interesting. And we'll see what happens next week.
Yeah.
There's a whole season to be played.
I thought he made throwing the football look really arm strength wise was really weird. I rewatched the game and there was dump offs to running backs where I'm seeing him put his entire body behind the ball, or there was a lot of short hopping receivers when his legs were on the move.
Mechanics were a little
It was
weird,
really weird. It was really strange.
What do you think? Sorry, go ahead, Wilk.
It's just a weird situation that came up. Again, it's all based on the name, right? Because we were talking about this guy, and you said it, the presumptive number 1 pick in this year's draft, even if he was never going to enter the draft. That's what he was getting talked about based on, what did he start last year? 2 home games, one against Louisiana Monroe, and Mississippi State.
Yeah,
that was it.
One of the worst teams in the Power 5.
Yeah. So I mean, this is. I don't think any. I mean, I'm sure people are rushing to have a conclusion on him based on 1 game because that's just what we do now.
That's how it
but
goes.
I think in many ways it's just kind of pushing back on the hype that was created, ultimately based on something that we hadn't seen yet, and now we've seen it, and it's not quite looking like what people were expecting.
What do you think?
There's lots of time.
I do think the Mannings do have some sort of deal with a dark spirit deity, and I think that Roger Goodell has to meet with a Manning tribunal before the season, and they make the choices. Because look, Eli Manning was a 1st overall pick, and
so was Peyton.
It's there's no other. If his last name was any different, he would have been. But I think he'll be the 1st overall pick because of the dark spirits.
I was gonna say, what do you think the Manning family group chat has looked like over the past week? And do you think Archie Manning, the patriarch, is in on that group chat?
I think they do a good job of their highs are never too high, their lows are never too low.
I think
They're
it's
like
just business as usual.
Real
It's
professionals.
fun. I mean, at the end of the day,
Eli Manning was like, looks about right to me.
Yeah,
Arch. Good
it's
job.
one game. One game is one
again,
game.
Matt Patricia gets a lot of hate from football people, but man, that defense was incredible, and Arch didn't have much of a chance. He was not good in the opener for sure, but it's kind of a rough way to start your tenure as the full-time starter. So we'll see how he looks moving forward. I'm still excited to watch him the rest of the season.
Heavy lies the crown, and that Manning family dynasty. It comes with a lot of pressure. All right, enough college football talk, gents. On last week's preseason specials, we dispensed a lot of hot takes, but I'm curious to know now, as we anxiously await kickoff, what are the takes that you have the most conviction about, the proverbial hills that you're prepared to die on? Gents, it's time to plant your flags. Give me your most convicted take for the 2025 season, and Zachy, we'll let you kick this off.
Well, that's what plant your flags, I think, is the perfect term, because there's a lot of takes that we put out that honestly we're not held accountable for. We put out these takes, we say whatever we want, especially me. I say the stupidest things you've ever heard every single week, trying to get a laugh out of people for the most part. A lot of stuff I do believe, but I wanted to do some takes that we actually have to stand by. So I brought literal flags.
Love it.
For each of the fellas. Here you go, T-Mac.
Okay.
Here you go, Wilkie. It's playing your flag back in war days. Used to take over a territory. You had to have to stamp your flag on the end of it. Baker Mayfield going up against Ohio State. He stamps his flag in the middle of it. We're going to stamp our flags. We're going to revisit these throughout the year. See, this is the most important take that we're going to have all year. And mine is, it's not controversial. It doesn't have to be controversial. That's not what we're trying to do. Mine is that Patrick Mahomes is going to reclaim his spot as the unquestioned number one quarterback in the NFL this year. I see power rankings come out, and there's Josh Allen ahead of Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Joe
Burrow, which is insane. These guys are not on the same tier as Patrick Mahomes. There comes a point where you can accumulate a lot of stats, and there is another echelon. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow are competing against Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is competing against Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Joe Montana. And I think this year, statistically, he is going to arrive back at where he was before. Maybe not the 50 touchdowns, but I could see a 40 touchdown, 6 interception year, or maybe even less interceptions than that. He has mastered the game on a granular level, and I think that he's going to show up. Rashee Rice is going to come back in week 6. Tyreek Hill, I could see eventually landing back on the Chiefs at some point this year. I'm planting my flag. It is being planted on Patrick Mahomes' mountain.
Here's what I'll say. Only one other time since 2019 have Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs come into the season not as the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. And the last time it happened in 2022, coming off their loss to the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, Patrick Mahomes won the MVP, he won the Super Bowl, and he won Super Bowl MVP. So the idea of an even marginally more motivated, maybe that's not the right word, but an even marginally more motivated Patrick Mahomes is something the rest of the league should be terrified about. And I'm on board with you. This has nothing to do with the fact that I drafted him in fantasy. I swear to God.
We messed around and let him have a chip on his shoulder.
Exactly. That's big trouble for the rest of the NFL, certainly the rest of the AFC. I appreciate you planting your flag with something so bold. Okay. Wilk, you're up. Plant your flag.
I'm going to plant my flag and say that Dak Prescott is going to lead the league in passing yards this year. Ooh. Now, you may see this as a extremely and irresponsibly pro Dak Prescott take. And let me be clear, it is. But this is also about the situation that he finds himself in this year. We talked about it earlier. Micah Parsons was that entire Cowboys defense. Without him, they are going to be next level bad. And in my mind, that probably means that the Cowboys are going to find themselves in shootouts more often than not. And with a backfield that includes Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, I think it's fair to... Yeah, well, sure. I think it's fair to assume that the majority of the responsibility in hanging around in those shootouts is going to fall on the passing game. Now, fortunately for the Cowboys, they have a receiver tandem in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens that I think probably gives them a path to success on that front. So I am fully expecting Dak to light it up with those two all season long. I'm not going to make any proclamations about how many wins that's going to result in because I don't know that it's going to be enough to make Cowboys fans feel better about the Micah Parsons trade. But just for Dak and maybe to work against some of the narratives that have been thrown at him over the past few years. I think he's going to be awesome this year, and he's going to put up the best numbers of his career.
I'm with it.
So my only question is, how is he going to throw for more yards than Joe Burrow? Because the Bengals are kind of not a perfect analog in the AFC for the Cowboys, but they're pretty similar. Play a lot of shootouts, are always throwing the football. Joe Burrow last year led the league in passing yards and in pass attempts. Twice in his career now, he's attempted more than 600 passes in a season. Dak Prescott has never done that. How is he going to out-throw Joe Burrow?
Not going to lie, incredible point by Jonah right there.
Yeah, I mean, call it 1-2. 1-2, and Dak beats him out by 5 yards.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Dak has a better opportunity to push the ball downfield to be well protected than Burrow does too.
Yeah.
And Dak
Burrow has the better weapons.
Pickens is going to go crazy in Dallas this year.
Yeah.
Pickens is going to go crazy. He's so talented, and they're going to be throwing the ball all the time, and he's playing alongside CD Lamb. That's insane.
Yeah. All right, T, plant that flag, baby.
Yeah, last year I was kind of waving the white flag on a take about this team, but this year, bring it in. Yeah, it's
going back to the well.
Teams here. Back to the well. The Chicago Bears will be the 2020 version. The Chicago Bears will be the version of the 2023 Detroit Lions. 12-5. They will play in the NFC Championship game. That's very bold. This is flag planting for sure. What I'm excited about with this team is everybody is talking about how difficult the schedule is. 7th most difficult schedule based on Vegas win totals. What they fail to pay attention to when they look at this is the fact that there are 3 teams in this division that were in the postseason last year. There are 3 teams with Super Bowl aspirations in this division from last year. So that's a big reason why this schedule is so difficult. You bring in Ben Johnson, who's been coaching in that division for years and years and years and is familiar with all of these opponents. He is, because he was the OC for the Detroit Lions. The offense, I think this offensive line is in a position to be one of the best in the league, a top 5 unit. Because you look at the left side and you've got Braxton Jones, Joe Thuney. Those are 2 guys who are excellent pass protectors. You go to the other side with Darnell Wright and Jonah Jackson, a great side of the line to be able to run behind in the run game. And then Drew Dahlman was one of the highest graded centers in the league last season. This is about Caleb Williams staying on script, because the pressure to sack rate was just off the charts last year. He hung on to the ball far too long. Only Will Levis hung on to the ball more than he did. But they made a massive investment in this offense through the draft with Loveland and Burden, a position that for Ben Johnson, the slot has been very, very important in terms of building out his offense. And they're maximizing that with Loveland being a guy that can be a monster after the catch. Burden could potentially provide some speed out of the slot as well. You already have Adunze, and you have DJ Moore as well as guys that have been in this offense with Caleb Williams. I think Adunze is a guy that can take another step. The defense, I don't know how you could have too many questions about. Jalen Johnson's one of the best corners in the league. Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, these are younger guys that are definitely taking steps forward. Kevin Byard had a great year last year as well. The defensive line is really where the question lies. Montez Sweat was a player who was still top 30 in the league in terms of his pass rush win rate, but it only showed up with 5.5 sacks. I think the profile tells you that he can step up and be a better player this year. Ode Dangbo he was with Indy last year, led the team in pressures. He could be an underrated guy to run opposite of him. They add Shamar Turner in the draft. They add Grady Jarrett through free agency to build the depth of that D-line as well. I think roster-wise, this team is really, really, really good. This is all going to come down to Caleb Williams putting it together, and I know, Dan, you're a guy that's high on him being able to do that this year.
Yeah.
I really like this team, and I really think the pieces are there for them to finally put it all together, as much as this has been a quarterback purgatory team for years and years and years, pretty much forever.
Yeah, I love what they're building. I love Caleb. I think, like I said last week, I think he's going to still be the best player or best quarterback from the 2024 draft class. Even adding to your point about the defense, I think Dennis Allen, not a good head coach,
didn't even
but
mention that. Had
great
in the
defensive
notes.
coordinator.
Yes.
So I'm super high on them this year. My only pushback or just cause for concern is that division is so good. It's the best division in football to me. We just ran down the power
They're
rankings.
all in there.
Every team other than them is in the top 10. And that doesn't mean that's going to be right as the season plays out, but they just have a really tough road. So I tend to lean toward maybe next year being the time that they take the big step to being like a Super Bowl contender, but I wouldn't rule it out this year because they're moving in the right direction.
It's rough because you say that and then you look at the other 3 teams and you're like, are they really going to get much worse next year?
Yeah, you're right.
Like Green Bay and Minnesota especially. Maybe you can see Detroit take steps back with starting to pay guys, but God, it's tough.
I'm not planting my flag here, but I'm like circling with a flag on Caleb Williams being a bust. I'm real close to it. I'm real close.
I forgot to mention actually play action last year, which obviously you're going to see a lot of it with Ben Johnson. He was really, really good. I think it was 8.3 yards per attempt in play action, and without it was like 5.6. So if Ben Johnson uses the play action game, which I'm sure he will, and Caleb was up to what he looked like with it last year, that could be another step. He was very good. He was actually very composed when blitzed, which makes me feel a little bit better about him, being able to take another step. But the numbers last year they were definitely troublesome. I just hope he stays within the system.
We'll see. There's clearly a diversity of opinion on the Bears' upcoming season and what their prospects are like. Really good stuff, boys. Before we go home, let's look ahead to this weekend. It's going to be electric, that goes without saying, but it's also going to give us so many new data points, so much new information, new narratives. We're going to learn a lot. So tell me, what are some of the biggest questions you're hoping to see answered in week one? Wilk, you're up first.
So I am fascinated by the Steelers. We obviously know they have such a high floor under Mike Tomlin. He's been the coach for 18 years and still doesn't have a losing season. I mean, if it weren't for some truly terrible quarterback play, I think it's fair to expect that they could have at least made a little bit of noise in the playoffs over the last few years. I think it goes without saying that Aaron Rodgers, even at 41 years old, will be some sort of upgrade over Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kenny Pickett. But I want to know, is that going to be enough for what they want to do this season? To be in the mix with teams like the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, the Texans, like whoever else you want to say in the AFC, you probably need the version of Rodgers from 3-4 years ago? I mean, look, he did some decent things down the stretch last season. You could definitely talk me into the idea that maybe he'll be a little better another full year removed from the Achilles injury, but man, I don't know if that player is ever coming back. So either way, I'm really excited to find out, and the really cool part of it is that we get to our first look at this offense in the content game of all content games when they play the Jets in the opener. So I can't wait to see this.
Love it.
As a lifelong borderline former New York Jets fan,
Former?
yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Lifelong borderline former.
Okay.
I am a.
That's a very specific relationship you have with this team.
That's if you know the Jets, you could understand how you could have a
sense.
very specific relationship with that
that's
team. All I know is Aaron Rodgers is going to absolutely light up the Jets. I don't know if that will continue for the rest of the year. He will light up the Jets in week one.
I feel pretty confident in that take. That's a good take. T, what's the question you want to see answered?
I'm going to start with actually because Dan, we were talking about in the power rankings. I really want to see if this Texans offense will look any different from last year, because I think it's very obvious that they wanted a culture change of sorts on the offensive line. That's the only real answer I can have for you, because it's a completely different group. Titus Howard's the only holdover. Ursary is going to start in week one at left tackle. Cam Robinson, they brought in, it doesn't even look, they were already looking to shop him. Laken Tomlinson from Seattle. I'm forgetting the other guard that was from Minnesota that they were just desperate to run out. And then I'm missing the center, but this O-line doesn't scream talented bunch, and I don't know how it really turns around. And then no sign of Joe Mixon. Are we really going to rely on Nick Chubb and Damian Pierce to run the football? I just don't really see how things get better. I know they got Kelly in to call plays with that passing game background from Los Angeles, but when you look at what they've done this offseason, I don't know how I can change my mind on them, I guess, when you deal Laramie Tunsil and you're not adding pieces that I think make you better there.
Yeah, I do think that the personnel on the offensive line is not meaningfully better. I think that they're high on Ursary, but they also got rid of Tunsil, right? So it could just be a wash there at best. And the rest of the group, like you said, is not very inspiring. I'm high on the potential of bringing Nick Caley, getting away from the zone blocking scheme and that clearly wasn't working under Bobby Slowick, and just they had no answers in pass protection in terms of their plan, right? I think it'll be a lot more competent under Caley. Whether that's enough to uplift a pretty still underwhelming group of offensive linemen, I don't know, but I think it at least gives them a chance. And the main thing is just giving Stroud a chance to get back on the path that he set out as a rookie, because he was well on his way to being a superstar in this league. I think he still is, but I imagine a lot of people are down on him after what happened last year. I don't think that's necessarily fair. I don't think it was his fault, but it's the reality of it. So he's got to get back on track. And if he plays like he did as a rookie, they can compete with anyone.
I just think they'll be super one-dimensional. I think they'll be one of those teams that's going to be top five in the league in pass rate.
Yeah.
And then you go. The biggest thing for me is I'm excited to see it because they're going to LA this week, and that's a young, talented D line that could really.
That's
make
such
you
a fun
too.
matchup.
So
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
Zachy, what's a question you want to see answered this week?
I want to know how the Lions are going to cope with losing both of their coordinators. I think that is my first ever appearance on No Timeouts last year was saying that I thought the Lions should have fired Dan Campbell and hired Ben Johnson as their head coach.
Yeah, you came out with a banger, right?
Yeah. And that wasn't even a shot at Dan Campbell at the time. I do think actually Dan Campbell is a really good head coach. The Lions, luckily, their roster is ridiculous. If you actually look like at every single, they have a guy basically on every single piece of the roster. Even on defense, like if they can stay healthy, the safeties are insane. The Aiden Hutchinson is such a great player. Jack Campbell in the middle of the line, like they're just DJ Reed. They brought him from the Jets. Who DJ Reed has always been good since he's been in the NFL, and I expect him to continue to be good. But on offense, Ben Johnson was worth points almost every single week. Like he could draw up trick plays. We saw the famous clip in Quarterback where they do the fumble Ruski kind of thing with Jared Goff, where they go and throw a touchdown. When you have a guy that's that locked in, that is finding those advantages, especially for a quarterback like Jared Goff, who remember early on in Jared Goff's career, we had that big controversy where if he didn't have Sean McVay in his helmet long enough, his plays were not successful. Jared Goff is a quarterback that really succeeds with good coaching and when the answers to the test are obvious to him. And we've seen him have really bad games where he throws a bunch of interceptions and unfurls the team by not having those. So I do think the Lions are going to be a really good team. But if we're talking Bears in the NFC Championship, if we're talking Bears in the NFC Championship, like Tyler said, I think the Lions will be that team that kind of falls to the bottom of the pack.
Actually, to the point we were talking about earlier, I don't want to look at Dan and say this, but you know who plays the highest rate of man coverage in the entire NFL is the Detroit Lions, and they play the Packers this week.
Wow.
I think the Lions are going to win on the road this
Ooh.
week. They can steady the Micah Parsons elite pass rush with, those tackles. Lions.
How healthy is Micah Parsons right now, by the way?
It seemed like it was. I mean, there was talk that he was going to maybe take an epidural before the game to play. It seems like it's not a major injury, and he was at practice like the first day after he joined the team, and it seems like he's on track to play, so I think he'll be fine.
All right. You got another question you want to see answered?
Me?
You.
Yeah, I would love to know if the Bengals can finally start fast. Do you know how many games they've won in the first 2 weeks of the season, dating back to the beginning of Zach Taylor's 6-year run as head coach?
Ooh, what their record is in the first 2 weeks?
Yeah.
A lot
6
of week
wins.
one losses.
They've won one game.
Oh my God.
They're one
In 6 years?
Yes, they're 1-11.
That's crazy.
That is beyond pathetic. Now, I've spent a lot of time dumping on the Bengals this offseason, and most of that is because I'm worried that this defense is once again going to waste a great offense. But it should be pointed out that it's not just the defense's fault, at least not early in the season. Go back to last year, the Bengals had all of 10 points in a season-opening loss to the Patriots. Patriots won 4 games last year. If they hadn't lost that game, they make the playoffs, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have because it would have been tied, but
Whatever the case
actually,
may
no,
be.
they would have beat the Broncos.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
So they would have made the playoffs if not for losing to the Patriots in week 1, putting up 10 points. Go back the year before. Open the season against the Browns. The Browns. They lost 24-3. Joe Burrow threw for 82 yards, I believe.
Yeah, and then there was the Steelers before that.
The year
wasn't
before
it?
that,
Yeah.
they lost to the Steelers in overtime, who were playing Mitchell Trubisky at the time.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow threw 4 interceptions in that game.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
look,
Unreal.
this isn't an anti-Bengals offense take. The Bengals offense is obviously great, but they need to start fast. They adjusted their preseason strategy this year. They played the starters in a preseason in an effort to, have them rolling heading into week 1. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. They opened the season against the Browns this year, so that's like a cupcake gift matchup to say, hey, you finally have the opportunity to start your season right. They play the Jaguars in week 2. They could make it 2 in a row and really make me look bad for predicting them to miss the playoffs again. But man, the way they've opened the season every single year under Zach Taylor, I do not have my hopes up. I got to see it before I believe it.
If they lose to the Browns, blow it up. Just blow it up.
Well,
Yeah.
And you want to talk about needing to get off to a fast start. Their first 2 games are against the Browns and Jags.
Yeah.
You want to know who their next 4 games are? Minnesota, Denver, Detroit, and Green Bay.
Yeah.
That's not, you don't want to be
Gotta
0-2
bank those wins.
going in
Gotta
there.
bank
You'll
those
be
wins.
out of the playoffs
Yeah.
by the time you get through that
Yep.
run.
Yeah.
I'm
got
gonna,
another question?
Yeah, big one. I think we've gotten to this, but I'm really interested to see what Liam Cohen looks like without the like mega talent on the offense, especially on the offensive line. I think that Jacksonville has the 2 worst tackles in the league in Anton Harrison and Walker Little. Meanwhile, the Bucks were a team that had one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in the league last year. They're going to keep that entire unit, so we'll see if Liam Cohen was the guy that made them great, or if it was just a really talented group. And you look at a guy like Travis Etienne, who's kind of one of the least elusive backs in the league for the last couple of years. I would hope that he's not going to be the focal point of the offense. I think they really need Travis Hunter to step up and immediately play at a high level, because I think this offense is really lacking talent. And we'll see whether or not Cohen is the type of guy to elevate it, because I think that Todd Bowles, as much as he have questions about his in-game management, I think he's an excellent head coach. And then you look at his time behind Sean McVay. Are those coaches that lifted him up, or is he truly an elite level play caller? I think we're going to find out really quickly. And I think that Carolina is an underrated team this year on the defensive line, in that they were as banged up as anyone last season up front. Like Derek Brown only played a handful of games. He's going to be back. I think Carolina will be a team that potentially goes on the road and wins as well.
I'm definitely interested to see the Jags in Week 1 for all the reasons you said, but I will point out that when Cohen came into the Bucs, the offense was already pretty good, right? But the run game the year before under Dave Canales was awful, and his arrival immediately sparked a huge turnaround there. They became one of the best running teams in the league. Now, obviously, Bucky Irvin was a big part of that, but so was the scheme. So I'm fascinated to see how it works out with Cohen in Jacksonville, this new backfield where no one kind of knows who's going to lead the way. Obviously, Bashal Tutin's kind of like that Bucky Irvin candidate for this year if he can emerge, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I'm really excited to watch them.
T, close it out. One more question.
You said
no, T. Sorry, you're Zach.
I'm not T, I'm Z.
Yes. Fair enough.
My last question is about Jaden Daniels.
Sure.
The Washington Commanders quarterback, if you hadn't heard. I'm curious.
The best quarterback from the 2024 draft class, if I'm not mistaken, right, Wilkie?
Yeah. I'm very curious to see how he's going to perform in season 2. I think historically, quarterbacks in year 2 struggle a lot more, especially I think mobile quarterbacks, because once the book is out and they know these situations where they run and how they run and what they're doing, it becomes very difficult for them. They also kind of treated their offseason like a fantasy football team on auto draft. They just kind of like, oh, Deebo Samuel's available?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Austin Eckler's available? Sure. Laramie Tunsil? Like, yeah, let's do this. And a lot of times those auto-drafted teams don't work out really well. And I think the NFC Championship might have been a curse for the Commanders, because it made them feel like they were a little bit closer than they actually were. I don't think they were the second best team in the NFC last season. So now they're rushing the rebuild a little bit, and instead of having a youth movement, they're having a lot of these progress stoppers in different spots. That being said, I do think Jaden Daniels is just a great talent, and I think that he can overcome that, but I'm not sure the situation around him is exactly perfect right now.
I have such an immediate look on this too, is because they have New York this week, and the Giants will probably have the best D-line in the entire league, and we'll find out kind of quickly if missing Sam Cosby and getting Tunsil in will have this be a good unit up front. Because they'll need Debo, I think.
I love the upgrades that they made to the offensive line and Tunsil and Josh Connerly, but having Deebo Samuel be the big move that you made at the skill position is not exciting to me. Obviously, he was a great player, but I don't think he kind of has that juice anymore. So I'm interested to see how this offense looks. And they do have some questions in the backfield too, right? They got rid of Brian Robinson. There's a lot of talk that Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt's going to kind of emerge as Bill Krosky-Merritt is going to emerge as the lead back there. I would love that. I was super interested in him coming out of the draft, but they've got some questions to be answered, and like I said earlier, the defense as well. So I don't know what's going to happen with them this season, but I think we all agree that Daniels is a special talent. So they at least have that going for them.
Yeah, lots of things to be learned this coming Sunday. I know we're fired up for it. Before we go home, need your Super Bowl picks. Got to get them on the record. Wilk, who's winning the Super Bowl, who are they beating?
Well, this kind of runs a little counter to my power rankings, but like I said, predictions are different than where teams stand right
everything
now.
kind of runs counter to the power.
Exactly.
You're just covering your bases.
Yeah, exactly.
All over.
I've just got takes everywhere, but I'm gonna say that it's the Packers over the Ravens. I think, like I said, I think the Micah Parsons trade does change enough for the Packers. Like, I saw them as knocking on the door before. I think the offense is ready to take the next step. You add a first-round receiver for the first time since 2002. I think he unlocks a lot more in that passing game for Jordan Love. We know the run game's good, and I think
really well-coached team.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I think that we talk a lot about how, the Kevin O'Connells and Kyle Shanahans and these other Sean McVays can uplift an offense, but Matt LaFleur's pretty close to that territory too. He's a really good offensive coach. And like I said, I think that Parsons takes this defense to another level and really gives them everything they need to win this season.
Your boy's 3-5 in the postseason.
Listen, I'm not too worried about that, at least not yet.
Zachy, who's winning the Super Bowl?
I planted my flag on Patrick Mahomes Mountain, so obviously I have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Sure.
I have them winning it over the 49ers. I think the NFC it's a little bit messy, and I think I'm such a Kyle Shanahan guy. I will defend Kyle Shanahan to the end of time. I think he's always does a great job as coach. And I think last season's regression was more of an outlier than anything. I think they're going to show that they're right back there. I love Brock Purdy. I think he operates the offense really well. They still have one of the elite pass rushers in the NFL if he can stay healthy. Robert Saleh coming back for the 49ers is massive. Again, Jets fan my entire life. I can tell you that Robert Saleh knows how to coach up a defense. He will get the best out of all of the players, even with some guys they lost like Hufanga and all of that. I love Hufanga, but still I think they'll be really good there. And if CMC stays healthy, I could see them making the Super Bowl.
Jonah, I'm going to make this quick because I want to hear yours. I'm going to go with the Bills over the Rams. I think the Rams are if any Stafford's anywhere near 100%, going to be a really good team. And the Bills, I think this is the year.
This is it, eh?
Yeah.
No wide right.
I'm going to be wrong anyways, man. Let's just move on.
No, I love that pick, and I like how we've gone a little bit off the board with the last couple. I have the Chiefs beating the Packers in the Super Bowl.
You're getting on the Dan Wilkins train.
No, we've just already... Look, it is clear. Nobody in the AFC can beat Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs. That is undeniable. And then in the NFC, I do think that the Eagles are the best team. I think they're the most talented team. And I also think that last year's attrition was significant. Saquon Barkley, the workload that he shouldered last year was absolutely enormous. I think there's just bound to be some regression there. They were practically the perfect team last year. It's so hard to do that 2 years in a row. The Packers are even better than they were last year, and I think they were a really good team last year. Chiefs over the Packers. There you go.
All right.
Write it down. Write it down. That's
it.
it. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in for this episode of No Timeouts. Enjoy week one. I know that the four of us here on this panel are absolutely going to. Once again, that's Dan Wilkins, that's Zak McDonald, that's Tyler MacKillop, and my name is Jonah Birenbaum. We'll see you next time.